Thanks for staying on. It's still Breakfast Live on GTV, and we are talking money matters. On this side of the table, the imminent arrival of the first tranche of funds from the IMF raises a multitude of questions and expectations. How will the funds be allocated within the Ghanaian economy? Which sectors will receive priority attention, and how will it contribute to sustainable growth of the economy? We are talking reforms and which measures Ghana will undertake to make sure that the IMF program offers the solutions to the structural problems of Ghana's economy. At the table this morning, I have government spokesperson on governance issues, Paul Dankwa, and he will be helping us analyze some of these issues. We will also be joined on our Zoom platform by Professor Lord Mensah, an associate professor at the University of Ghana Business School. Paul, good morning. Thank you for joining us once again.
Good morning, Thelma, and it's good to be here.
The first tranche of the cash is coming, $600 million US. First question, is it cash that the country is receiving, and what should we expect?
So, Thelma, let me greet you and greet your cherished viewers this morning, and really to thank the IMF and thank the government delegation, thank the various stakeholders who have been with us throughout the processes. You would recall that we began at 1st of July 2022 when we sought an IMF conversation. So what's going to happen this week significantly is that tomorrow the IMF has the Ghana file in Washington, and they are discussing proposals. Thereafter, immediately, the board has approved those proposals, especially following the conversations that came from the Paris Club and the China unit, would be to disburse our first $600 million US this week. We are certain and confident that by the close of business day on Friday, we would get the first chunk of $600 million. And then
so
thereafter,
cash that's coming into Ghana's account at the Bank of Ghana.
Very much so, very much so. And then thereafter, there's going to be a review, definitely, of policies that has been put in place for balanced support in terms of budgeting support. Over another 6 months, then we'll get an extra $600 million US after that review. And then after the second $600 million US, there's going to be a third tranche of money that will come, which will be $360 million US, and then thereafter that we are seeking to have. So clearly, it's been a long road. It's been a very difficult curve, but we have tried our possible best to ensure that we return back to the stability that we have in this country.
Let's pick other thoughts on the matter. Professor Alexander Bilson Darko is a senior fellow at the Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA, and he joins us now, or he will join us a bit later, so we pick his thoughts on the issues as well. Palgrave, 600 million in our account. What's the first item on the expense list for the government side?
Well, so it's really the policies that we've presented to IMF. It's a lot more about balancing our budgeting and our books and putting together reforms that would effectively ensure that our debt to GDP is continually sustainable over the long haul by 2028. I think that the first item on the government list is really to ensure that the market receives this IMF grant very positively and opens up other investors to come into the country to invest in the country. It also boosts confidence really in the Ghanaian market. The effects of that are beginning to be felt by tomorrow when transport fares locally is being reduced by 10%, and a sizable part of some of those issues are going to impact positively. One of the good things about this IMF negotiation is that it's to protect the life and livelihood of poor people, and so we've taken into key consideration the poor people and the very difficult challenges that people face when IMF issues come into the country. And we're also making sure, really, that the monies are put to good use and strict use, and there's going to be a strict proof of that over the period. So this is coming in May. It's a 3-year, $3 billion US that we are being given, and then thereafter we are going to be looking into by 2026 of April. That's when the whole conversation ends with the IMF implementation.
I just wonder, and I will ask again, which specific sectors of the economy are going to benefit from this 600 million. Certainly, there will be some priority areas. I want to find out if those have been selected yet, and which potentially they could be.
Well, so when you go into an IMF conversation, like all other countries have over the years, it's primarily because you've had challenges with your economy as it relates to your support of balance sheet in terms of budgeting. So the sector really is just making sure that financial reforms are restored, our public sector reforms are restored, and that becomes the hub and the pivot within which we can be able to ensure that it impacts the various sectors. So obviously it's going to impact all the sectors of the Ghanaian economy, from agriculture to sports, because of the various policies that we've put in place. You also have to recall that this IMF bill is coming at the backbench of our own economic recovery program post-COVID-19, and we're going to be implementing the Ghana Care and Obatampa program that we have put in place over the years.
Ghana Care and Obatampa will be implemented using funds that we are getting from the IMF?
Continually, yes. I mean, the Ghana Care Obatampa program came at the backbench of the recovery program when we were done with the COVID-19. And so it was part of the proposals that we presented to the IMF. And it's a key guideline and parameters that has been put in place in that regard.
We'll be joined very shortly by another member of our panel, and he will also be sharing some insights with us. We are having this conversation about the IMF first tranche of $600 million US that is about to hit the account of Ghana, potentially by the end of the week. Government spokesperson Paul Gwibuachi-Dankwa has been at our table explaining what we should expect from that funds. And we are joined by Professor Alexander Bilson Darko, Senior Fellow of the Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA. Prof, thank you for making the time and for adding your voice to this conversation. 600 million, and Paul Gwib is telling us, will be transferred directly to the account of the Republic of Ghana to be used for the economic recovery efforts. What should be the expectation of the ordinary Ghanaian? Should we expect an easing in the financial pressure that has been the norm recently?
Yes, because this first tranche, it's supposed to be for budgetary support. And if you recall, when the budget was read last year, there were ordinary budgets which did not take into consideration these funds coming from the IMF. And they didn't also take into consideration the gains that government will make from the DDE program. So for these two things coming in, they would present a very good budgetary support to the government, which is supposed to help ease some financial constraints to the government and to the economy.
So government now has more money to do more than what it said in the budget, exactly, or it has enough money to now finance what it said it would in the budget?
This money coming in were not part, it wasn't expected in the budget. And going into the budget, it wouldn't be prudent for government to expect this fund to come. So this is coming as new funds to support the budget, and hence would be a very critical liquidity support to the budget.
Paul Grave, so now this is money that, according to the Prof, you had not put in the initial budget. So is it safe to say that you have 600 USD extra sitting in the account of the Republic to do whatever the government decides to do with it?
Not accurate. I think it is safe to say that IMF is going to grant Ghana $3 billion US, and so that's the entire period. And the number of things supposed to do, if you don't mind, I'll just basically just go through it. It's close to about 6 key indicators that we are looking. I mean, so the first is that this IMF program is going to unlock the much needed financing from development partners and investors, which has already been ongoing in terms of 3 conversations that we have been having. The second, I mentioned the various tranches that we are going to be going through as it relates to the IMF program. Let me just get my documents right,
okay,
just briefly, to make sure that I'm informing the Ghanaian public adequately and very well. So the money is going to do 6 things. The first is debt sustainability. just to make sure that our debt to GDP becomes sustainable. The second is fiscal consolidation in terms of our fiscal ratings. The third is to strengthen our monetary and exchange rate policies that we have put in place. The fourth is to build strong financial institutions over the years. The fifth is macro-critical structural reforms that we are putting in place. The sixth is maintaining peace and security within the sub-region. And then the sixth is economic growth and transformation. And so it's not money that is coming that hasn't got a plan in terms of deliverables. We are looking at all these 6 effective plans that we put in place to
these are general targets. When you talk about debt sustainability and fiscal consolidation and all that, the ordinary Ghanaian wants to know, what does that mean in effect? So when it comes to the day-to-day life of the Ghanaian on the street, what does fiscal consolidation mean?
So I think that the day-to-day is the immediate implementation of the reduction of transport fares. It's an immediate impact on the Ghanaian person. The second would be the total reduction of inflation. You've seen how inflation has been reduced significantly from January, even up until date, and it's going to reduce further and further. The third is really to ensure that our forex, and which is where the market players come into being, our forex reduce significantly so people can continually do trade amongst themselves. And the fourth is to ensure that the Ghanaian economy is going to be extremely robust, where people are going to have opportunities to continually do what they will seek to do in terms of development within the country. So the impact is enormous, and you will begin to feel the day-to-day impact of that. Primarily as transport goes down, it means that food fares are going to go down, which is going to impact the ordinary Ghanaian who goes to the market. Fuel is also going down considerably. So if you look at the various impacts in terms of the social moral fabric of the Ghanaian economy, it's going to be huge.
Prof, is this, it seemed like an almost idealistic perspective, doesn't it? When Palgrave tells this really nice, beautiful story about 600 million for the first 6 months, helping us achieve some of these things. Is that real?
I think what he talked about is the total program, the 3 billion, what the 3 billion is going to do, not necessarily the first tranche, but of course it's the first tranche of the 3 billion, so he can describe it in that manner. But if you look critically at only this first tranche, it's when it comes in, when this money comes in, the Bank of Ghana receive it, and it becomes part of the Bank of Ghana reserve being the money that the Bank of Ghana has to use to shore up the exchange rate, so it could impact positively in our favor on the exchange rate, and its CD equivalent will be credited to the government of Ghana for its expenditure. So, like I said, to shore up budget. So for that, and like you said, fiscal consolidation, what does it mean to the ordinary Ghanaian? It means that government will be able to fund its program that would stabilize the economy going forward. And when the economy is stabilized, people like you and I and other people on the street would also find their economic situation being stabilized.
When you think about the factors that led us into seeking the bailout in the first place, and now that the release of the funds has started with this first tranche of 600 million, should it give us some cause for concern?
Yes, concern for not continuing this cyclical visit to the IMF. And to me, this is a very important opportunity for Ghana, the government of Ghana, the people of Ghana, to take advantage of this to structurally reform the economy, to make the economy not become overly dependent on external financing, as it has been since the independence, and recently have become very significant dependent on external financing for the past 10 years. So I think once we take advantage of this opportunity to change the economy structurally, to make it not be dependent only on primary export, a few primary exports, to add value, to industrialize based on our natural resources and agriculture, the opportunity is here. And I think Ghanaians must engage in that conversation with the government to shift the paradigm, because we cannot keep going to the IMF the way we do. And if you look at the last 2 visits to the IMF, 2 years prior the visit, have seen significant growth in external debt or total government debt, over 18%. And that we shouldn't be doing if we take this opportunity to structurally transform our economy, as we have been talking about, but the action has been lacking behind the talk.
Palgrave, I'm sure that you'll have a lot to say with regards to this, because like he's saying, we've seen all governments go to the IMF when there is a crisis. When is that going to end if we do not take up the responsibility of managing prudently the resources that we are blessed with, considering the wealth of natural resources that we have and the potential of what it could give us? Are we likely to see this being the very last or not?
Well, Thelma, I think it's really very difficult to get to a place of statement that this would be the very last. It's really a lot more about the reforms and the structures that governments put in place to ensure that our financials and our debt record and our books and everything that we are doing to ensure that the economy becomes stable is there. So it'll be very difficult for me to say that this will be the last time. I am confident that the structures that needs to be put in place and the foundations that needs to be laid to make sure that our economy is robust enough to be able to withstand external shocks, that's the key indicator. Because if you have a country that is overly dependent on imports, then it's difficult to get your own internal mechanisms working, which is why our government has sought to industrialize the Ghanaian economy, which is a beginning step. We hope and pray that successive governments that will come thereafter would also use same models to ensure that over the next maybe 10, 15 years, we can say that we've built enough strong systems, enough strong pillars to be able to withstand external shocks. I can agree, yes. Ghana government has gone to the IMF number of times, close to about 17 times. There's been various reasons to that accounts for it. I mean, we have had our own peculiar reasons that sent us to the IMF, which is external shocks. Obviously, not to bore the Ghanaian people, but everybody has seen the depth of deterioration and plunge within which COVID-19 hazarded the global world and even global economies. And people have also seen how the invasion of Ukraine from Russia has difficultly impacted countries. But the real question is that, yes, the war has not stopped, but we are getting $3 billion within this time when the war is getting into its second year. Our goal is to ensure that we build enough robust systems. So
are we still blaming this on
No, I'm giving
COVID
you,
and Russia
I'm giving
and
you, I'm not blaming, I'm giving you a narrative and a conversation that led us to where we are, and also trying to also let you know that we are not blinded to the fact that these external shocks are there, and we are not blinded to the fact that the war between Russia and Ukraine is ongoing.
Are we
and
blinded to the fact that we've borrowed a lot?
I'm trying to respond as well. I'm trying to respond as well to the systems and the mechanisms that we are putting in place to ensure that this $3 billion that is coming is protected enough, is safeguarded enough, just so we are able to withstand against external pressures. I mean, definitely, we cannot be blinded to the loans that we have taken and the impact of those loans in the Ghanaian economy, and even the infrastructural works that are evidential for
how
people to see.
How much of this 600 million is going to service some loans, if at all?
Well, I think that we should look at the entire holistic 3 billion. I mean, I don't want to just focus on the 600 million. You know, Prof said that it's 600 million of the 3 billion. So we need to look at the entire program and the benefits of the entire program. The entire program is to make sure that our budget and our debt record becomes sustainable, and is to make sure that reforms are put in place. So that entire program and the chunk of it that is coming is to make sure that we're able to meet up to the KPIs and the deliverables that have been set in place between the Ghana government and the IMF.
Prof. Darko is not entirely agreeing with you, and I'll speak to you now a bit later about the terms of the conditionalities that will be imposed with the release of these funds. But Prof, I saw you shaking your head from time to time when you were listening to Palgrave here. On what issues do you disagree with him?
Let me tell you this. If you're building a house and you don't want a storm to take away your house, you build a strong foundation, correct? If you build a weak foundation, the little storm will take your house away. We need to have faith in ourselves. It will be unforgiving, knowing the potential that this nation has, to say that we can confidently predict that we can do well and stop this recurring visit to the IMF. We are extremely resource endowed, much better than many nations in this world. We have fertile land, sunshine. We have all the resources and we have people, human resources too. We have all the resources, like the builder will have all the concrete to build a solid foundation. Yet we keep building weak foundation and talk about the situation being difficult going forward. I don't believe in that. I believe in a Ghana that if it put its act together and start planning very well based on its natural resources and rich agricultural land, doing better going forward. Within some short time, we can do something better. So my disagreement with him was that probably he's a little less optimistic than I am. I believe we can do it. With the right leadership, with the right policies, and right prioritization of what the average Ghanaian need, we can deliver.
What do you think those priority areas are, Prof, for the ordinary Ghanaian?
No, for our priority areas of ordinary Ghanaian is to get a good job and live a decent life. The priorities of government is to create the opportunity for that to happen, which we have the capacity.
Palgrave, what is this costing us? We've always known that this money would not be for free, and that it would not just be doled out to us, that it would cost us. What's the cost here?
I think that the benefits of this money outweighs the cost.
But tell us what the cost is, and then talk to us about the benefits.
Everyone who is aware, I'm sure Prof is aware that when you go in for loans, there are costs to it. Interest rates, there are costs to it in terms of repayment of those loans. So there are various costs to loans. I mean, all the 17 times we've gone to the IMF, it's cost our country.
This time, what is it costing us?
Well, so the cost is basically the fact that we're ensuring that I think that I don't want us to look at the cost. I want
to know what the cost is, because if we are getting this money now, we want to know what the condition is.
The conditions are very simple. We are ensuring that balance of budget works out effectively. We are ensuring that our debt to GDP becomes extremely sustainable over the long haul by 2028. We are also ensuring that we have strong and enough robust systems within the financial sector in terms of reforms that would liquidate every single investment that the Ghanaian economy is being made into the country. Those would be the preliminary cost of that. But the benefit really of the loan is much more important and significant to what the Ghanaian people are going to get. I think that with this policy and money that is coming from the IMF, it's generally to protect the life and livelihood of the poor people. Ghana government has taken into consideration the plight of the Ghanaian people, and we are going to ensure that the cost is extremely minimal as successive IMF conditionalities have come.
Palgrave, what is the cost?
No, that's what I've said.
We are getting 3 billion, right? 600 million has arrived.
It hasn't arrived yet.
Or will arrive.
It will
According
arrive.
to what the government is telling us, it's almost in the bag. So chances are, from what you said in your previous response, by close of day Friday, the Bank of Ghana would have 600 million USD in its coffers belonging to the Republic of Ghana.
In their reserves, yes.
What is the cost of that money to the ordinary Ghanaian? In future, some people's children and the next generation would be having to pay for some of these things. We want to know what the cost is. If somebody wants to write a will, let them tell their child that in 15 years, government is going to pay this. Perhaps sow the seed now.
No,
what is it costing?
Thelma, there's been successive cost of loans to this country. When the then government went into the IMF and we came to exit the IMF, there was extensive cost to that. And so all governments that has gone to the IMF has incurred costs to the Ghanaian economy. And I'm stating that rather than focusing on much of the cost, we should focus a lot more on the benefits of this loan to the Ghanaian economy. We have had a very struggling economy, especially when we were hit by COVID-19 and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We have gone through a debt restructuring. We are trying to also restructure a lot of our external debts. And so the cost really is that, yes, we are restructuring external debts. We are ensuring that by 2028, our debt to GDP becomes extremely sustainable. We are ensuring that our financial sector and reforms become extremely credible. We are ensuring that the monies that are coming in is street-proof to the implementation plan that we have set in place.
Would it have been too much to ask for an acknowledgement of the fact that the man on the street has had to personally pay for government to remain in business at some point? Would that acknowledgement not be a good admission of a cost to us as a people?
Right, I don't think that we have denied the acknowledgement of the support of the Ghanaian people. We have always acknowledged the Ghanaian people, the hardworking Ghanaian people that have continually been in support of government business. I mean, Ghanaian people, Ghanaian investors always will throw bonds to government for security. Government has used those bonds for infrastructural works and those bonds to ensure that government coffers is good and very liquidated. The Ghanaian people have taken treasury bills. Government has used those treasury bills. Government has repaid those treasury bills, and so we do not deny the assistance of the Ghanaian people. I mean, we are here to serve primarily because of the Ghanaian people. So we appreciate the Ghanaian people, and we will continually appreciate the Ghanaian people, which is why we want to ensure that the Ghanaian economy really bounces back stronger and firmer to where we began from. You'll recall that from 2017, the Ghanaian economy was growing at a single digit, which clearly meant that the Ghanaian economy had been strongly robust. And I'm in no doubt in my mind that at the coming of the IMF money, which is the $3 billion US dollars over the period of 3 years from now, 2023 to 2026 April, I mean, no doubt in my mind that the Ghanaian economy is going to be stabilized. And Prof has stated, and I've stated as well, that it's going to be very positive on the Ghanaian people, their ways and means in terms of fuel, in terms of transportation, in terms of food. Every single thing is going to be impacted positively so that the reductions are going to come in very strongly.
Prof, is it that Ghanaians should expect that these things that we talk about, the faith that you mentioned previously when you were talking about faith in government, faith in government's ability to deliver, faith in government's ability to pay on its promises, should the Ghanaian now rightfully expect that those things should come through to them? We've had a debt exchange program. We've had issues with pension bond holders and other organized labor groups coming out to agitate. Should we expect those things to change now that we are beginning to get some of these monies coming in?
I would answer that question comprehensively, thinking of where my colleague ended. You asked about the cost of the monies coming in, and definitely, I mean, this money is coming with the condition of some kind of adjustment that the government need to undertake. And I would say boldly that we should even be happy if some cost goes to some directions. For instance, if government listen to the outcry that the size of government is too big and must be reduced, and if this causes it to be reduced, it's a cost that we should be happy of. Correct? But then, like he said, there will be financing cost to this, but note that the financial cost to this is lower than some of the debt that this money will be used to retire. which has higher financing
So
costs.
some of these monies will be used to retire debts.
Some of this money will be used to finance, the money will be used to finance the budget, and within the budget we have debt servicing. So some of this money will be used to service our debt.
How much do you think? At least of this first tranche?
We know debt servicing has been taking about 27% of our budget. So if that is anything to go by, it will be close to that.
Palgrave.
But then, the other question in terms of what the ordinary people would expect from government, I have said it and I'll say it again. This is a great opportunity for the government to show what it can do, given the fact that it has already extracted some significant wealth from people due to DDE, the Domestic Debt Exchange Program, which we see some of the recurring outcry by the pensioners. This is the time that government should use the opportunity to regain its reputation in the bond market going forward.
How can it do that?
It can only do that if it does the right thing going forward, especially with this financial support coming from the IMF. If government follow the structural reforms that it's accompanying this loan, if government does well in bringing down its deficit, if government does well in making sure the inflation continues to go down and assures the economy of the stability that everybody is crying for, at least that will give some gains to reputation to the government. And that reputation can stabilize this bond market that has been shaken. And recently we had a lot of losses in the books for the commercial banks. So we need to also do better to ensure that there will be financial stability to show up these losses and to make sure these banks don't get into a situation like those banks were when we had to do the financial cleanup.
There's a portion in the 6 points that you mentioned about support for, I think, banks, wasn't it? What's actually the plan to make that happen? There's been issues with people trying to withdraw monies from accounts, from, what do you call it? These investment funds that they put their monies in that they've had difficulties accessing. Is there a plan to make any of that better so that people can have more ready access to their funds based on the point about supporting the financial sector?
Well, I'm not too sure what challenge people have been having in withdrawals of their funds. It hasn't come to my notice. I haven't seen
that people have gone to withdraw from their investments and they've had no funds were available to be given to them.
In which banks? I don't know. I haven't heard of anything like that. It's new to me. I don't know of any of that. But
that has not come to your attention.
No, I haven't heard of anyone having any challenges with withdrawals of funds from any of the banks that there are no funds. I haven't heard anything
from their
like
investments.
I haven't heard with private banks or government banks, or I haven't heard. Maybe we can talk some more about this. Yes, I'll be happy to see how we can assist such people. But to pick up from where Prof left off, I think that very, very creditably, our government has put in some measures. Prof spoke about expenditure. You see that even prior to going into the IMF negotiations, government had cut down expenditure significantly. I can relay all of that, and I saw the expressions on your face. We cut down expenditure by 30% for MMDAs, cut down salaries by 30%, cut down fuel vouchers by 50%.
How much did that save us?
Well,
what did we get?
A lot of money. A lot of money. It might be inconsequential when I mentioned that, but at the time when
can you give me a figure?
I would give you a figure. Just coming to it. Just at the time from April of 2022, if you recall, that was when we put our expenditure cuts in place. Up until December of 2022, government raised close to about between 48 to 50 million Ghana cedis was raised from all the expenditure cuts that we are putting in place. And you recall as well that the President, Nana Danduque Akufo-Addo, on the 31st of October economic address also extended those expenditure cuts for an extra 6 months into 2023. So as we speak, there are still further as extended cuts, external cuts, and that we have put in place in terms of expenditure. So government is being very lean on its budget, and government is being very lean on its spending, and government is being very lean as well, and very prudent with the minimal resources that we have in the country, just to be able to make sure that all the promises that we have made to the Ghanaian people on the ascension of office from 2017 and even on the ascension of second term from 2020, all those promises are met to the Ghanaian people, much to their delight and pleasure.
You think Ghanaians are delighted and feel pleasure from the current situation, that government is delivering on its targets? I saw the expression on Pop's face when you
the answer is no.
Comments.
The answer to that question is no.
The answer is no?
No.
Well, I think the answer
we all
to
know
that. No, Prof, I think the answer to that question is that the Ghanaian people, together collectively with government, have had to burden share the responsibilities of challenges.
The people's side feel that government could still do more. You're telling us you've saved some 50 million Ghana cedis within a 6-month period. How much have you spent in that period as against what you've saved, for example? So that when you're talking to us about cutting the budget, we'll be able to, put that side by side. You've saved us 50 million, but what did you spend?
What we spent is evidential to the results that is on the table in terms of infrastructural work and developmental projects that we have put in place.
Infrastructural work.
Infrastructural work and developmental
At our last check, many of the projects that we road projects, for example, in some of the places that we visited, appear to have stalled with contractors nowhere in sight when we visited. A few weeks ago, we visited Obeta Bilamte and a few other of the construction spots within Accra. It did not appear that those projects were continuing at the time that we visited. So which infrastructural projects are there others perhaps that I may not be aware of?
Did you visit the Pokwasi in Sawam Road that is being constructed?
Which flooded recently and caused extensive hours of delay on the road?
It didn't flood. I don't think it flooded. I drive on that road every time to the Eastern region and to Ashanti region.
There was a time when that road was so badly flooded.
A week or 2 or 3 weeks ago, there's not been any flooding on the Nsawam Road.
So we're talking about different times. 4 weeks or 5 weeks. Well, recently there has been some floods.
There hasn't been any flooding on that road.
Which infrastructural projects would you have to tout as some of the things that have kept going on, even in spite of all the difficulties?
Well, I think that the president mentioned at the State of the Nation address the number of infrastructural work as it relates to roads that we have done in this country compared to any other government that has come. I mean, I can tout all the successes of roads that we have built in this country from the time we started. And the president has stated very confidently that we have built more roads in this country. The NDC would plout and say that we have even built roads that can journey from Accra to China.
Where's the La General Hospital?
You heard about the documents that are being put in place to ensure that the La General Hospital is rebuilt back to a very formidable hospital that will serve the community people. In recent times, I think that I chanced upon some documents and some meetings that the Ministry of Health is working on to ensure that the La General Hospital is built.
That's futuristic. But what's happening now?
I'm telling you that work is going to begin on the La General Hospital very, very soon. And I can promise you that even before we get into the 2024 general election, the La General Hospital will see some infrastructure works ongoing over there.
Another item on a campaign trail,
Not
another promise on a campaign trail.
I can't come on your very reputable station and make a campaign promises. I'm telling you factual things. I'm telling you truthful things. And I think that in the next year, when we come back on this network, you and I, we'll go to visit the La General Hospital.
I think she's trying to say that the timing is very convenient.
Oh no, the timing cannot be convenient. You know, Prof, that we are here to develop this country and make sure that we serve the Ghanaian people and make sure that they are in good health. And we can appreciate the plight of the people of La. We apologize to them for the delay of the construction of the hospital, but plans have been well advanced. I can promise you that the plans have been well advanced as it relates to the La General Hospital. Maybe you and I would visit that hospital once the president is opening that hospital. I can assure you that.
Palgrave and Prof. Badako are at the table with me talking about the IMF cash that's soon to hit the accounts of the Republic of Ghana. Another voice at our table Professor Lord Mensah, Associate Professor at the University of Ghana Business School. And I'll be asking him a few questions as well. Prof, thank you for joining us. What are your perspectives on this new tranche of cash that's coming in? Your fellow colleague here from the IEA is hopeful that things could change. Palgrave is trying to paint a very optimistic picture of where our fortunes would lie. What should the ordinary Ghanaian expect from the release of some of these funds from the IMF? Prof. Mensah, are you with us?
Hello, I'm with you. Can you hear me, please?
We can hear you now. Please go ahead.
That's fine. Right. Go ahead with your question, please.
I'm asking what we should expect now that the first tranche of this 3 billion we're asking from the IMF is about to hit our account. Palgrave, who is speaking for the government, thinks there's much to expect on the structural side, the fiscal side. And your colleague from the IEA is also hopeful that things could potentially change. Both are, however, not oblivious of the challenges that lie ahead. And I wonder what your thoughts may be on the matter.
Yes, indeed. Went to IMF for a purpose. And we asked for a 3 billion for a balance of payment support. So if you ask me what we should expect, then clearly I would say that we should categorize the expectations in short term, medium term, and the long term. The immediate term, what we're going to witness or see is the stability in the exchange rate. Because of course, we understand balance of payment support, the way to have that kind of foreign exchange buffer so that government will be able to meet its, foreign transaction obligations, and then also the demand and supply of the exchange rates, demand and supply of the dollar in our environment will also have some assurance. So it's not money to be distributed into maybe health sector or maybe the manufacturing sector, possibly a social project like free SHS. No, this is purposely for the balance of payment support. And then the signal that the balance of payment support will send is that Ghana has enough dollars. And as a result of that, if you are in need of the dollar, you don't have problem. At the same time, it will help other investors to also have confidence. Let me give you a typical example. As of last 2 months, last 3 months, there was a company who had wanted to establish in Ghana to produce fruit juice. And then they realized that the balance of payment, Ghana's foreign reserve has gone down completely. And they were asking themselves if they should sell the product here, their monies will be in cities. So when it turns up to convert it to the dollars, they may not have them. So if your balance of payment support goes down, there's a way of deterring even investors. And so these are some of the soft benefits that we may get from the IMF this time around. But there are also other things that we may have to look at. There are other countries that may want to deal with Ghana in terms of providing a soft law or some support. But then having your debt level at a certain threshold, they may not able to come in because they know if whatever support they give you, they end up using it to pay your debt. So now that we've started engaging the IMF, getting assurance from our external creditors, building up into debt restructuring, they know very well that our fiscal space is going to improve. But we know when we go to the IMF, they give us conditions. And if we keep to those conditions, it gives us stability at the macro front. And so all those, countries that want to deal with Ghana, all those institutions and then agencies that want to deal with Ghana, they want to come in this time round. And so the prospect is good. And we know, you study the dynamics very well in our economy. You know very well that anytime it turn up to be the hands of IMF, we see some stability. We can see interest rates coming down. We can see exchange rate being stable, we see inflation coming down, all boils down to government being controlled to, restrict, their expenditure in certain areas, and at the same time reduce their budget deficits, which calls for necessary borrowing here and there. So for me, it's a good sign.
Professor, is it worrying, at least for some, that it takes an overwatch to keep us in check?
Yeah, it is worrying because as a country, what we've realized is that we lack that self-financial discipline. And, if we are not careful, we'll end up, subjecting the economy to an external, supervisor, which IMF is for a longer time before we can, appreciate what it means by, controlling yourself when it comes to finances. Let's take back, the history. When we found ourselves with the IMF somewhere 2016, 2017, thereabout, our budget deficit, which normally calls for financing, and getting up borrowing here and there, was fast approaching, 6% to our GDP. And the IMF prescribed 5% for us, which tells you that we were more or less converging the ideal threshold that the IMF. And then immediately we exited the IMF. And remember, it was a 3-year program. Whatever the case may be, the program has to end. And this 3-year program, we ended it. And then the next year, we read a budget of about 11%, budget deficit. You can trace our budget deficit and then relate it to what we find ourselves with IMF and then when we exited. Which, in a way, it tells you that being with IMF was more or less a suppression. Government was not getting its way to spend as it wanted. So immediately we exited IMF, we read a budget, and the budget, we skyrocketed it to around, 11% to GDP. The subsequent year went to 13% to GDP, and at the point we're even doing 15% to GDP. Then you ask yourself, what was the essence of ending the IMF program? Because we ended the program putting some structures in place. We had Fiscal Responsibility Act, we had Fiscal Responsibility Committee, which is made up of some of my own colleagues, professors at the University of Ghana and other universities, which is expected that this committee will serve as a check on government spending and how government read budget creating a huge budget deficit. So effectively, it tells you that yes, we're not that financially disciplined when it comes to ourselves.
What should be the most immediate
Then
things?
there's a noise at your background and it's feeding into the communication. I don't normally hear your questions very well.
So sorry about that. We'll work so that you hear me a bit more clearly. What do you think should be the more immediate focus areas for the government now that some monies appear to be coming in?
Well, what is happening is that, okay, fine, we had this staff level approval contingent on, government introducing some revenue enhanced measures. And then also having the domestic debt restructured, there seemed to be that kind of free space in interest rate service. And coupled with, the buying of our external creditors, the government is going to have that fiscal, space, more or less. I would say that indirectly, the government should more or less having that opportunity have more from less interest service and then other revenues that were coming through the introduction of the tax handles, should channel some of these funds through the corridors of the bank. And I'm happy we had this bank being established. And I think the focus should be clear. I believe that the banks have the mandate to identify the sectors of the economy that are doing well, the ones that are, not doing well. I would say it's not mandate, it's the expertise they have. And so they know, within their loan structure, areas that if you lend to, you can be exposed. And areas that are thriving, to some extent, money is lent to those sectors goes to create, that kind of multiplier effect of money flow, where jobs are being created and all those. So, I mean, in one way or the other, some of these monies can be, channeled through the banks in a form of soft loan. In itself can even bring interest rate down, for which, the spread of borrowing from the bank will start, coming up again in the private sector. So for me, I think I don't want the government to engage in any business to say that, money has come. Well, fine, we understand that government needs to provide some infrastructural base when it comes to roads, comes to health and all. But government engaging in any other business, I don't want to support that. I mean, projects like NAPCO and all those, they're not projects that government should go in, but they won't turn up to revert back into the economy as much as we expect. Whatever government wants to do beyond the baseline infrastructure delivery and all, they should channel the money through the corridors of the bank in the form of soft loan, bring interest rate down and other things for people to borrow, go into businesses. So the economy should be shifted to the private man rather than government being active on the grounds trying to provide all sorts of amenities, all sorts of social projects for the people.
Prof. Mensah, thank you for your initial thoughts there. I will be going to our screen now to read some of the messages that you are sending to us, and then perhaps I'll come back and take final words from our three panel members. The WhatsApp number is 055-55-61034, and we'll be taking your thoughts on the screen. Lots of greens that I can see, gentlemen. Do try and take notes so that we'll go through as many of them as we can when I return to the table. Good morning, Thelma. I can clearly see the money from IMF being used for campaign projects instead of development projects. I think the IMF has seen that. That's why instead of 1 billion, 6 million USD is being released. So campaign promises versus development projects. Hagwe, please take note of that. Good morning, please. Would like to know what exactly the 600 million is going to be used on and the cost too. Good morning. Is this money also catering for employment? So is part of the money going to be used to pay salaries, for example, is how I would put that. And they're not telling us the truth. How do we pay back this money to IMF? What are the conditions? Anthony is asking. How do we pay back these monies? Good morning, GTV Breakfast. Yes, it's good to focus on the benefits of this 600 million USD, but I can't seem to process the reason why the government spokesperson can't give us a simple answer as to what cost are we receiving this bailout. Arafat sent us that from Kumasi. Good morning, BFS. The spokesperson, please let us know the cost. You aren't saying anything to us about that. We've heard over and over in the past years of IMF loans in these countries that will be used to solve our problems, but we keep going back to IMF. Tell us how we are paying this loan. Joshua Kubil is asking. GTV Breakfast, General Life Kaswa, good morning. I think we should all applaud the government of Nana Addo and Baumia at IMF negotiations. Zambia and Tunisia went to IMF even before Ghana, but still no concrete agreement made. But Ghana will have its first share this week. So General Life sent us that message. 600 million IMF cash. Question to the governor's rep. You use part of the money for the 2023 budget line for ministries of state. Professor, on the show, if you are able to advise the IMF and government on how to use the 600 million, which areas of the economy will you spend the money on? Different kind of questions, spending office of the governor or the finance minister. So perhaps they can find us some answers. Palgrave, you have a lot to answer from the screen. Good morning, Thelma. Please, the man is running away from the questions of the cost. Frederick thinks that. Joey, insanity has been defined as doing the same thing repeatedly by expecting different results. We've been alternating the governing of this country between the NDC and MPP since 92, and there hasn't been any significant improvement in the lives of the people. I see no reason to repeat this because I'm now saying I won't vote. And quite worrying. The fact that the man in the studio doesn't admit that the reckless borrowing and the misuse of funds are the causes of our current predicament and not COVID or Russia-Ukraine war means that they haven't learned from their mistakes and are going to mess up these funds too from the IMF. All they do is talk big but only act little. Joe's thoughts sent to us from Tema. Okay, more messages on our screen. How long is it going to take to pay back the 3 billion? Is a question someone else is asking. I'll go to the top of the screen. Good morning, Thelma. It is good we have the IMF fund now. It will give us a space to shape our economy and bring some relief to Ghanaians. I trust the government to do well with these funds. And he's sending regards to Prof. Lord Mensah. Good morning, GTV. We beg the government to use this money well. Emmanuel Kofi Jechi from Goso. Morning GTV. I wish this IMF deal should not bring harsh conditions such as elsewhere. John Mohammed's own Alhaji Kalu sends us this from Natle Rigu. Why is the Prof dodging the question of the cost the present loan would cost us? Good morning to you, Thelma, and your panel. I still want you to ask Paugo the conditions applied to the IMF loans. I wish I could say I was convinced, but your guest, can your guest tell us if the La General Hospital is among the over 100 being built and give us the timelines? At this rate, how many of them will be completed, equipped, staffed, stocked, and opened by the end of 2024? I'm guessing they are talking Agenda 111 here at the table. What about the La Teshinungwa Tema Road as well as Obechabi Lamte Exchange? He should know that petrol is not everything that puts vehicles on the road. The cost of spare parts because of the exchange rate and the regular visits to mechanical shops because of terrible roads is also a bother to vehicle owners, whether private or public. Please tell the gentleman to use the short route from Nungwa Barrier to Spintex Junction. So they are providing alternatives for us at the screen. Irajua says, I'm well informed there are two sides with the IMF loans. Palgrave is just giving us one side. We also want to know the other side. What are the conditions? Irajua sent us this from Asylum Down. So you can see how very active our viewers are and asking the questions that are of relevance to them. Palgrave, you have the most to answer from what we've read on the screen, so I'll give you the first opportunity to have a response, and then I'll take the final words from our other guests as well.
Well, Tom, I really to thank your testers for being very involving and engaging this morning. Clearly tells you that we've come to a very matured age of informative technology, and questions are hot very this morning, served very hot from your table. I have to be careful when I'm coming to eat your food now. But I mean, Toma, IMF conditionalities vary from program to program, really. I think that a number of countries that are going to IMF this season, the conditionalities are extremely very different because the impact of the global economies that have been hit is worldwide. I stated very clearly that we're looking at close to about 6 pillars in terms of what the IMF fund seeks to do. The first is to ensure that our debt becomes sustainable over the long haul. The second is a stronger fiscal consolidation on how we do things in the country. The third is to ensure that we strengthen our monetary and exchange rate policies. And so the continuous high skyrocketing of our forex every now and then doesn't help the business community to be able to do business and to trade. I can understand and appreciate that it's not just fuel that put vehicles on the road, but if you have been able to stabilize your forex, then it impacts the spare parts, because then when they are going to bring the spare parts from overseas, it's at a cheaper cost, and it would also impact very clearly on some taxes that they pay. The fourth is to ensure that we build stronger financial institutions. And I think that for a third world country, middle income country, developing country, stronger financial institutions are extremely important. And it will take a bit of a long haul to ensure that we effectively get to that modus operandi as a people. You know how difficult it is to even take taxes now. It's become a precipice of our government to ensure that we put in a lot more discipline in the Ghanaian people to pay taxes as opposed to our own collective development. The fifth is to ensure that we have a macro-critical structural reform within the various sectors and maintain peace and security within the country. People can underestimate the cost of insecurity in your country, but Ghana has enjoyed high level of peace and security, especially planned around countries that are going through the establishment of constitutionally mandated government. And then the sixth and seventh is economic growth and transformation. And so we're making sure that this money that is coming in is going to meet up to these key indicators.
Perhaps we would appreciate a more specific breakdown of what each of these targets would seek to achieve and how much it would cost us, because now people are very interested in the cost. The cost may determine whether or not people even want the project or not. Yeah, a quick one from you,
have another meeting,
Prof, and then we'll rise from this table very quickly. Then we go.
Yeah, I think many people were concerned about how are we going to pay this money, the 3 billion that we're going to get. And as I said earlier, this money coming in is for budget support, okay, and not necessarily balance of payment support, but budget support. And it is through the same budget that we'll pay in the future, because you have to ask yourself, where does government get its money? Government get its money from all the revenue sources. And going forward, if government is in debt, government pays it debt through the budget. So we'll pay you through the taxes, we'll pay you through all other sources of revenue that government gathers in the economy.
Professor Alexander Bilson Dak is a senior fellow at the Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA. Thank you, Prof, for making the time. Pagwe Dankwa, government spokesperson on governance issues. We've also interacted with Professor Lord Mensah, associate professor at the UGBS. Thank you for sending your thoughts across to us as well. Key birthday shouts to you, Wilhelmina Abano Nave, who is one of us, one of our very own. Today, Mina, it's your birthday. We just want to say we love you. Patricia Abe, party girl, you know I love you. 16th May is all for you. Much love to you today and always,
Toma,
all of you who celebrate.
Toma, you know that this money is not going to be used for campaign. I think that we need to let the Ghanaian people know that our government has never used any money that has come from anywhere for campaigning. It's a very prudent government.
Pagwe, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for staying with us. Next, Valerie is sitting down with the beautiful Zakia after the